next year. This has been very much long in the waiting here. It's very, very, very much needed. The people who have to get down to the impound lot, especially in the wintertime during snow emergencies, do not have the facilities that we should be providing them. And so we will be making improvements. I'm not sure the details of that, but we're working through that process currently. So here's a breakdown of our on-street parking expense budget recommendations for 2016, both in on-street, off-street, and also the impound lot. You can see actually there's a slight decrease in the total.
Is there a change in the FTEs, either up or down?
I do not believe that there's any change in FTEs. I know there isn't overall in Public Works, and John, I don't believe that there's any, particularly in the parking system. Okay. So we're near the end here, and let me just touch on our internal service funds. So fleet services, as I mentioned earlier, this is the fleet service division is managed by John Sharpelig, our fleet director. We manage the acquisition and maintenance of all the city's vehicles. This includes police, fire, public works. So all city vehicles are maintained in this division. We also provide fuel for city vehicles through this division. Assuming you're all familiar with our general location, our general fleet facility is out at 1200 Curry. Well, it's just on the other side of the west side of downtown there near the ballpark. And then we have another facility that takes care of what we call a little bit of lighter fleet and a lot of the police fleet, and that's at our Royalston maintenance facility, which is also in that same general location. But we do have kind of branch facilities throughout the city. So here's the budget recommendations for our fleet. We have it divided into fleet management, our field coordination, and fleet maintenance operations. One of the things I just want to mention and perhaps remind you is we had gone through actually a really significant change in the budget in this area over the last few years. And the reason for that is previously all of what I refer to as our drivers and operators in Public Works. These are the people who operate heavy equipment and drive snowplow trucks and those type of things, used to be all housed in this division. And then what we would do is build them out to other divisions as needed. When we switched over to a new classification called Public Works Service Workers, we consolidated all those and then moved them permanently into the divisions that they mostly work out of. So a good portion of the employees that used to be in our fleet operation now is actually in Mike Kennedy's area, transportation maintenance repair, but we've also moved some throughout into other divisions as well. That seems to be working very well on a number of different levels. One of them is just plainly, I think the employees feel like they have a home now. They have the base, and they like that stability. So that program is working out very well.
I wonder if we could talk real quick before you advance the slide. How do we address the issue of vehicle replacements? Where in the budget does that appear?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, capital replacement. So this is the group that, purchases the vehicles. So what they do is for a vehicle, we determine the length of time that we believe that we're going to need, or that the life cycle on that vehicle when it needs to be replaced, and they calculate out a rate for a monthly rate. and they charge that to the department who's utilizing it. So as an example, the police department. So there's a kind of a charge per vehicle to the police department so that we're bringing in revenue to have the capital expenditures to replace that vehicle when it needs to be replaced. Now, what we did a few years ago is the CARS program really helped us kind of better identify that. So there's a couple of categories here. That system works really well for replacement of vehicles in our system. But when we have departments that need new vehicles, so it's an expansion of the system, we wanted to be able to deal with that. And our new CARS system really allows us to better manage and keep track of that what is a replacement vehicle and has already been accumulating funds to replace it versus what is a new vehicle, and therefore we need additional funding to replace that capital or spend that capital on that new vehicle.
Good. So that's different than maybe in the past where they're kind of one-offs, spikes showing up in a click at capital expenditure. It's helped us do a little bit more planful replacement and new equipment. Is that a fair assessment
Mr. Chair,
of the benefits of that system?
Yeah, actually, it's helped considerably. We in the fleet operation, we always had a challenge with additional units coming into the fleet because technically we haven't been charging for that and covering that in our fund. So the bottom line is it both helps manage kind of the request in an orderly fashion, but it's also very helpful for just managing the fund and the balance and doing the pro forma because there's more certainty on what we need to replace.
Yeah. Thank you.
Another internal service fund that operation that a couple of them programs that you may not be as familiar with is we have one referred to as construction management. Construction management is actually in Mr. Elwood's transportation design and engineering and design division. This is a group that really helps manage construction projects throughout the city. So they coordinate all the construction and they do the lab testing and so forth, ordering of the concrete, asphalt, those types of things. And then also our traffic stores. So this is a store operation for our traffic operations, signals, poles, those types of things. And of course, with all of our internal service funds, all of the dollars that fund these are through chargebacks. So there is really no general fund dollars directly going into internal service funds. It's all through a chargeback system. And the last area that I wanted to touch on today, and I'm going to define this a little bit better. This is what I call capital operating programs. So this is not our capital debt service or our capital net debt bond program. This is our capital operating program. And this is broken into surface transportation capital and sidewalks. So surface transportation capital, which is the largest of the two, this is actually, once again, Don Elwood's group. This is all of our engineers that you've met quite frequently, and they work out of the 4100 fund, but we do identify them as a capital operating expense, so we do get an appropriation, an authority to spend for their expenses, and the revenue that comes in that pays for this is charged back to capital projects. So, but that chargeback typically doesn't happen until the project actually goes into construction. So for example, we do design work on a project 2, 3, sometimes 4 years prior to the project actually going into construction. And then once it goes into construction, those dollars are then reimbursed back for those expenses.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Is this different than the net debt bond funded construction costs? Are they showing up elsewhere?
The net debt bond capital program, I think it's in the appendix here, but that's just our capital program. So okay. And I think Mr. Ablin hit that in a previous meeting.
Okay.
Yep. So it is different, yes. And then just the second one is our sidewalk group. This is our sidewalk inspectors and the sidewalk replacement program. And it's kind of a similar that this is, paid for out of in the 4100 fund, but it's an operating element of our sidewalk group. And the special revenue fund, this one's pretty straightforward. This is our DID, our Downtown Improvement District. This is dollars literally that we do the assessment for the Downtown Improvement District. The dollars flow through us, and then we reimburse the DID for the expenses that they incur. So that concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to be answering any questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kaki, just kind of scanning the desk. Okay, Councilmember Goodman has a comment.
I have a comment, if that's okay.
Sure.
I just wanted to commend your staff for the incredible work that we've seen out of Public Works this year. I get more compliments about the Public Works Department than all of the other departments in the city combined, especially given the Southwest LRT project and project office not responding. Public Works employees, I think, have been tremendously responsive. I've also done a lot of work with John Wirtjes and the impound lot, improving the impound lot, and I'm getting a lot of positive feedback from my constituents about the work on your staff. That's in addition to the solid waste and recycling, snow plowing, street sweeping compliments that we get pretty consistently. And so since there's so many people here, I just want to remind you that the public believes Public Works is one of the most important things that the city does, and the team that you've put together, I think, is just enormously responsible and responsive, and I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that comment. I certainly echo those remarks. It's it represents a significant portion of the budget, and to see that it's being managed so well, so thoughtfully and planfully into the future, and being so responsive, as Councilmember Goodman says, it's remarkable. So, not seeing any additional questions. Oh, I'm sorry. We have President Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I want to echo my colleagues' compliments. I had to, this summer, saw more public works activity in Ward 4 than I had seen, I think, since I came on the council. And people did a really good job of a lot of individual projects and managing the traffic, keeping people safe, keeping the barriers in place, and just really good work. And I actually stopped and complimented the crew that was at the end of my block, because usually one of the biggest complaints I get in the summer is people driving really fast through the neighborhoods. But Public Works did a great job of making sure that could not happen this summer with all the projects that they had going. So it's good. It's good for people to see their dollars at work, and they sure did this year in the Ward 4. The other thing I should say thank you again, and I hate to pick on Mr. Herberholz, but I think one of the things that people need to understand about our city is that bill that they get, that utility bill, is becoming darn near as much as they're paying in property taxes to the city. And so, when those rates go up, it affects them. And it's interesting, and I think very few people understand that the sewer charges are somewhat out of our control, and that's a big chunk if you look at your utility bill. But I do think it's incumbent on us always to look at these rates and make sure that we're not getting out of whack with our neighbors, and making sure that we're doing the work efficiently. And I'm convinced Mr. Herberholz's department is one of the most responsive departments in our city, and I always thank him for the great quick work he does in some really challenging circumstances when people will dump a whole bunch of stuff on somebody's backyard or driveway or whatever. They always take great care about that. So thank you, and again, echo my colleagues. You run a great department, Mr. Kaki. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Bender.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I can't resist adding that, in addition to all of this really important day-to-day work that the Public Works Department is doing of maintaining our roads and keeping water and sewer systems running, we are also challenging you to take on a lot of new innovative directions in rethinking how our streets serve our communities. And I have so appreciated the way that Public Works has been able to rethink our bicycle and pedestrian planning, look for opportunities to leverage private investment like we're doing in downtown East, hopefully, continuing that work across the city. And with the new division that Ms. Hager is leading, just really not only continuing to provide these great basic services to our residents, but also looking for ways to go above and beyond and making sure that we're looking for every single opportunity to make our streets work better for everyone. And so I've really appreciated that balance that you've been able to strike.
Thank you. We'll keep the hit parade going. How about if we recognize Councilmember Reich?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll keep this brief. I think I'll just echo all the comments and thanks moving forward. As someone who sits on the committee and chairs the committee that sees the day-to-day, week-to-week work, it's nice to step back and say, okay, what's next year look like? And the budget, of course, is sort of the ghost of the machine of what that looks like. And sort of expounding upon what Councilmember Bender said, this is a department that I've come to witness in my term here, both as vice chair and now chair of the committee. It's embedded in your organization and your leadership to learn. I mean, this isn't just how to deliver water, it's how to deliver it better. And you take the steps to do that, make the partnerships to make that happen. And you could go to example. How do we manage our concrete streets? We don't know. Let's figure it out. Let's do a test pilot. And it seems like this is sort of the DNA of this department, to not just do it, but to do it well and to think ahead. And I think that once again, to echo the comment made about the planning division that you created, I think that's an organizational statement that really sort of reflects something that's been there always in your DNA as an organization, but now it'll be very explicit. So I look forward to that work.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd just like to remind my colleagues, we have there's an appendix or two to this report that provides a little additional detail. Questions are always welcome to both Mr. Kotke and Ms. Christensen as we work through the budget process. Coming up on October 8th is our next budget hearing. It's with CPED and Regulatory Services Department. October 16th is the Internal Audit Department, and October 22nd is a series of public hearing or department hearings on 911, police, emergency management, and fire departments. That's just sort of a preview, so you can set your TiVo to those meetings. Thank you again for your comments and for your presentation and for ending a half hour early. So, thank you.